So this is Project 12. Painting is the silence of thought and the music of sight. So first, basically the project is explaining the quote, which is painting is the silence of thought and the music of sight. And it is found in near the end of chapter 11 of My Name is Red, which is called I Am Called Black. So to me, the first part of the quote, it's which is painting is the silence of thought. I feel like it could be interpreted many different ways. And in the novel, it also, depending on how you interpret it, it's how you, I guess, choose the quotes you need to explain for it. So I think, personally, I think it could mean two different main things. So first, like when you're painting, you don't have to necessarily maybe think. Sometimes you could just go, like just do. Sometimes if you let emotion take over or just your body itself take over, it'll know what to do. And that makes sense, and not even just with painting, but also with drawing. Like you could just let your hand move and do its job. I think that's one thing, as well as like emotion. The emotion can take over rather than like intellectual thought when you're painting. It could silence that intellectual thought and just let your emotions take over when you paint. I think another meaning as well is when you look at a painting. When you look at a painting, it'll invoke silence. Either you're wowed or it just is the silence of maybe intellectual thought, and it evokes emotion instead. So it just depends on how you take it. It can invoke like it just silence your thoughts just because of how amazed you are. It can mean many different things, I think. So that's the kind of the first part of the quote. And then in the book, you do see many instances of this. It just depends on which one you choose. If that makes sense, which definition you choose. So first is the uncle seeing the Venetian painting for the first time. The quote is, "I never forgot the painting that bewildered me so. It left him like speechless." The painting, it left him speechless. So it invoked a silence of thought of a sort. Like it made his mind blank. It was like, wow, this painting is so beautiful that it just left him like bewildered. I say that's like one of the ways that painting is the silence of thought. It could invoke like bewilderness. It makes one amazed, and like it just confuses one's feelings. That in that instant as well, it made the uncle like confused about what he was feeling, because he didn't know if he wanted actually that painting so much, or if he wanted to, if it was like wrong or not, or if he actually wanted it, since he would be technically be wrong to want it more, or like to have it before the Sultan. So it was like weird. It made him, it invoked like, I guess it did leave him a little bewildered. So that was it, kind of in essence is like the first part of the quote. The second thing is when the murderer is like explaining, I guess, his situation with Elegant, why he killed him, and it's in that paragraph, those paragraphs. So if this is in chapter 4, I will be called a murderer. Over time, jealousy becomes an element as indispensable as paint in the life of the master artist. So it goes back to how I said that sometimes when you paint, an emotion will take over rather than intellectual thought. That's kind of what that means. Like, jealousy will take over. Jealousy is being used more than paint, or it's as useful as paint. Like that emotion is useful when you paint, basically. It's one of the definitions. Painting is a silence of thought. When you paint, you just use your emotions rather than your intellectual thought, and that's kind of what that exudes. That quote. So then the second part of the quote, the thought of, not the thought, painting is basically the music of sight. In my opinion, so when you think of music to your ears, it's pleasant, hopefully. I think it's dependent. It's either pleasant or it's not good. And sometimes painting, like when you see something visually, that's kind of like how music is to ears, painting is to sight. It is something either pleasant or non-pleasant, but it is like the equivalent of what you see, the art-wise, honestly. Like both are art, and in a way that they represent different ways and they appeal to the different senses. It's not like you can necessarily hear a painting. So you have to see it, and in the sense that they're both art and that's how it appeals to that specific site. So that's kind of how that is, and painting can sometimes speak to you of a sort and invoke different things, as well as how music can do the same. So they're, depending on the site, they're interchangeable, if that makes sense. Depending on the sense, they are applied to that sense, if that makes sense. It's like specific to that sense, and they're like interchangeable. So that's what I think. And yeah, that's it.